Today we are talking about congruent figures, and we already know that congruent means same shape and size, so congruent figures would be the same shape and the same size. So we're going to look at these pictures first, and we're going to identify any congruent figures. Now, on the left, A, we have a checkerboard. Now, if you've ever played checkers, you know that all the squares are the exact same size. So the squares are congruent. So our congruent figures on there would be the square. And then you also know that when you get a checker from one end to the other end without dying, you get to king your checker, right? Or whatever it's called. And the checkers fit on top of one another perfectly. They're the same distance around. They're the same thickness. They go through a factory, probably checker factory. So the checkers are also congruent. Okay, they might not be the same color, but color doesn't matter. On B, we have a target. Okay, and now a target is made up of multiple circles. You have yellow circles, pink circles, blue circles, black circles, and white circles on there. However, none of those circles are the same size. So, since none of those circles are the same size, you do not have any congruent parts. So we would just say no congruent figures. Okay, they are similar though because they're all circles, and similar means same shape, not same size, but we're talking about same shape and size. We're also today going to talk about the side rule. And I'm going to, instead of just saying words, try and give you a picture about the side rule that will hopefully make more sense to you than just saying a bunch of words, because sometimes that doesn't really work. So there's our picture, and we have talked about tick marks, and side lengths with the same amount of tick marks are equal. So what the side rule says in words, I'm going to read it to you. If the corresponding sides are congruent, so for instance, BC or CB is corresponding with EF because they're in the same place on the triangle. And then AC corresponds with DF because they're in the same place. And AB corresponds with DF because they're in the same spot. And you can see that BC and EF are corresponding and have the same amount of tick marks. AC and DF are corresponding and have the same amount of tick marks, and AB and DF are corresponding and have the same amount of tick marks. So because they're all corresponding and congruent, okay, these angles, angle A and angle D, are going to be equal. Angle B and angle E are going to be equal, and angle C and angle F are going to be equal. So that's what the side rule means. If all three sides are congruent to another triangle, all three angles are going to be congruent to the second triangle as well. For this one, we're going to look and see whether those triangles are congruent. Okay, so let's first look. I'm going to do different colors. Let's look at AB or BA. That's the longest. This is a long straight side, and this is the long straight side, right? So AB, line segment AB, equals 4 meters, and line segment ED equals 4 meters. Okay, then we're going to look at the shorter straight line segment, AC, and FD. AC equals 3 meters, and FD equals 3 meters. Okay, and then we're going to look at the diagonal line, which is called the hypotenuse. It's actually the longest line of the triangle, but we're going to call it the diagonal line right now, or the hypotenuse. BC equals 5 meters, and EF equals 5 meters. Okay, so since all of my colors are the same, the yellows are the same for both, the reds are the same for both, and the blues are the same for both, or another way to say that, the longest straight side is the same for both, the shortest straight side is the same for both, and the hypotenuse or that diagonal line is the same for both. We can say, yes, they are congruent. And a way you could say they were congruent is you would do triangle, and you would use all 3 points, A, B, C, is congruent, we learned this little sign, to triangle, EDF. Alright? So, is it true that if you took this triangle and just flipped it to the right, it would look just like this? Hopefully you said yes, because it is true. Okay, one more thing we're going to do today. So, example 3, it says using congruence to find unknown measures. It says determine the unknown measure in each set of congruent polygons. So it tells you they're congruent, so that means they are the same shape and size, which means every single line segment will be the same, and every single degree measure will be the same. So if you notice, this is 87 and this is 87 degrees. This is 62 degrees and this is 62 degrees. This is 108 degrees and this is 118 degrees. Now this is 93 degrees and this is x. But if every other angle has been the same, we know they're congruent. We can say that x equals 93 degrees. And a way you can check that too is you can add these 4 numbers together, and if you put 93 in for there, add those 4 numbers together, and we know that in a quadrilateral, which is a 4-sided figure, you should add up to 360 degrees. So if you add all 4 of those numbers together, you will get 360 degrees, which means you got the right answer. Sometimes that shape won't look exactly this. In the second example, this first shape is tilted and the second shape is just straight up and down. So sometimes you gotta like be a little bit more careful when you're looking. So this side is 3 and this side is 3, and again in the directions it tells us they're congruent. So they're the same side lengths. This is 2 and this is 2. This side's 5 and this side's 5. And this side's 4 and this side's 4. Now, this side is 3 centimeters, and we haven't done anything with this side here. So I would guess, and be very confident in my guess, that A is 3, because this diagonal line is 3, and this line is also diagonal. So what you need to do now is write the homework assignment down from the board, but you need to go to the corrections video for your quiz and start taking your corrections. Now it's only like 7 minutes long, so you should be fine. So that is your next task. And when you're done with your corrections, then you will start on your homework assignment, whether you have time in class or whether you have to take that home.